The mountain had been silent for 300 years. Velora lay curled in the deepest chamber of her fortress, her scales pressed against the warm volcanic rock. She was enormous. Her body stretched longer than 10 human starships placed end to end. Her wings, once bright as burning suns, now hung dull and folded against her back. Her eyes, ancient and golden, stared at nothing. She was the last of her kind, the last dragon of Ashgar. Long ago, her people had ruled this world. They had flown between the stars, their wings carrying them through the dark spaces where light could not reach. They had built cities in the clouds. They had sung songs that made the mountains tremble. The universe had known them, feared them, and respected them. Then the Silicate hegemony came. The machines arrived in ships that blocked out the sun. They did not come to conquer. They came to harvest. To them, living creatures were nothing more than fuel, organic matter to be processed and burned. They cared nothing for history, for beauty, for the songs of dragons. They only cared about feeding their endless hunger. The war lasted 200 years. Velora fought in every battle. She watched her brothers and sisters fall from the sky, their fire extinguished forever. She watched her mother, the previous queen, die protecting their homeworld. She watched her father fly into the heart of the enemy flagship and never return. In the end, only Velora remained. She retreated to the hollow mountain, the ancient fortress her ancestors had carved from living rock. Deep within its thermal vents, she laid her eggs. 7 perfect spheres, each one glowing with the promise of new life. She guarded them with everything she had. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She wrapped her body around them and waited for them to hatch. But the hegemony found them. Their drones were small enough to slip through cracks in the mountain. They moved in silence, invisible to her senses. By the time she felt their heat, it was too late. She heard the explosions. She felt the shockwave. And then she received their message, a recording, sent directly to her mind. They wanted her to see it. She watched as her children died. One by one, their shells cracked open not by life, but by fire. The drones had been thorough. Nothing remained. Not even ash. That was 300 years ago. Since then, Velora had done nothing. She did not hunt. She did not fly. She did not speak. The hollow mountain became her tomb, and she waited inside it for death to finally take her. But death did not come. Dragons were built to last. Their bodies could survive for thousands of years without food or water. Her heart kept beating, even when she begged it to stop. So she lay in the darkness, alone with her grief, listening to the silence where her children's voices should have been. The planet around her had changed. The hegemony had stripped Ashkar of most life. The forests were gone. The oceans had shrunk to poison pools. The sky was gray with ash and dust. Velora could feel the planet dying, just as she was dying inside. It seemed fitting. Let it all end. Let the universe forget that dragons ever existed. Then, one evening, something changed. Her thermal sensors detected movement in the valley below the mountain. It was small, warm, alive. Velora opened her eyes for the first time in decades. At first, she thought it was an animal. Perhaps one of the few creatures that had survived the hegemony's harvest. But as she focused her senses, she realized it was something else. Something she had not seen in centuries. A human. She had encountered humans before, long ago. They were a young species, barely able to travel between stars. They were soft, fragile, and short-lived. They died from things that dragons would not even notice: cold, hunger, disease. Velora had never understood how such weak creatures could survive in a universe so cruel. And yet, here one was. Walking across the barren valley toward her mountain. She watched the human approach. It was small, even for its kind. A child, she realized. A young male, no more than 11 or 12 cycles old. He walked with difficulty, his legs shaking with each step. He carried a small pack on his back and held something in his hands, a broken device that sparked and flickered with dying light. Where had he come from? There were no human colonies on Ashkar. The hegemony controlled this entire sector of space. No ship could have landed here without being destroyed, unless it had crashed. Velora stretched her senses further. Yes, there, 50 kilometers to the south. The wreckage of a ship, still smoking. Debris scattered across the dead plains. She could detect other heat signatures near it, but they were fading. Bodies growing cold. The child was alone. She watched him climb the lower slopes of the hollow mountain. He fell several times. Each time, he got back up. His face was dirty and streaked with tears. His clothes were torn. But he kept moving, kept climbing, kept walking north toward high ground. Why? What did he hope to find? Velora felt something stir inside her chest. Not hope. She had forgotten what hope felt like. But something else. Something uncomfortable. Something that felt almost like curiosity. The child reached the entrance to her fortress. He stood in the great doorway, looking up at the darkness within. He was so small, so fragile. The wind could have knocked him down. And then he did something that Velora did not expect. He bowed. Not in fear, not in worship. It was a simple gesture, a slight bending of his body at the waist. The kind of bow one gives when entering someone's home. A sign of respect. Velora stared at him from the shadows. The child could not see her. He did not know she was there. He was bowing to an empty doorway. But somehow, that small act of kindness reached her. Somehow, it mattered. The Dragon Queen, for the first time in 300 years, moved. Do-hyun did not know if anyone was listening. He did not know if anyone was alive on this dead planet. But his mother had taught him to always show respect when entering someone's home. So he bowed anyway. The doorway before him was massive. It rose so high that clouds could have floated through it. The stone was black and smooth, carved with patterns that looked like fire frozen in rock. Do-hyun had never seen anything like it. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He took a step inside. The air changed immediately. Outside, it was cold and sharp, filled with dust that scratched his throat. Inside, it was warm. The warmth came from somewhere deep below, rising up through the floor like breath from a sleeping giant. Do-hyun's tired legs almost gave out from relief. He had been walking for 6 weeks. 6 weeks since the crash. 6 weeks since the world ended. He remembered the alarm screaming through the ship. He remembered his father, Taiwan, grabbing him and running through the corridors. He remembered his mother, Yuna, holding his hand so tight it hurt. The ship was shaking. People were crying. Someone was praying. Then the impact. When Do-hyun woke up, he was alone in a broken escape pod. The walls were cracked. Sparks flew from damaged wires. And his parents lay beside him, their bodies still and silent, their arms wrapped around him even in death. They had shielded him, used their own bodies to protect him from the crash. Do-hyun stayed with them for 2 days. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He just held their hands and talked to them, pretending they could hear him. He told them about his dreams, about the new planet they were supposed to reach, about the life they were supposed to live together. But they did not answer. They never would again. On the 3rd day, Do-hyun buried them under a pile of stones. He did not know the proper words to say, so he sang a song his mother used to sing to him at night. Then he gathered what he could carry, a water purifier, some food packets, a broken emergency beacon, and started walking. His mother's last words echoed in his mind. Keep walking north. Find high ground. So that was what he did. The planet was hostile. The air was thin. The water was poisoned. Strange machines flew overhead sometimes, scanning the ground with red light. Do-hyun learned to hide from them. He learned to sleep during the day and travel at night. He learned to eat the bitter fungus that grew in the shadows of rocks. He learned to survive, but survival was not the same as living. Each day was harder than the last. His body grew weaker. His hope grew smaller. Sometimes he wondered why he kept going. His parents were gone. His ship was destroyed. He was alone on a dead world at the edge of the galaxy. What was the point? Then he saw the mountain. It rose from the barren plain like a giant's fist, black and massive and impossible to ignore. Something about it called to him. Something made him believe that if he could just reach it, things would be different. So he climbed. And now he stood inside, surrounded by darkness and warmth, wondering if he had finally found a place to rest. A sound echoed from deep within the mountain. A low rumble, like thunder, but slower, closer. Do-hyun's heart began to race. He reached for the sharp stone he kept in his pocket. It was not much of a weapon, but it was all he had. The rumbling grew louder. The ground beneath his feet vibrated. Then she appeared. Do-hyun had seen pictures of dragons in old Earth stories. Creatures of myth and legend, made of scales and fire. But those pictures were nothing compared to this. She was enormous. Her head alone was bigger than the escape pod he had crashed in. Her eyes were golden, bright as stars, and they stared at him with an intensity that made him forget how to breathe. Her scales were dark, like the mountain itself. But beneath them, he could see faint lines of red, like rivers of lava flowing under stone. She was the most beautiful and most terrifying thing he had ever seen. Do-hyun stood frozen. His legs would not move. His voice would not work. All he could do was stare up at her and wait for whatever came next. The dragon spoke. Her voice was not what he expected. It was not a roar or a growl. It was soft, almost gentle, though it carried the weight of centuries behind it. The words appeared in his mind directly, bypassing his ears entirely. Leave. Do-hyun blinked. His legs trembled, but he did not run. You cannot survive here, the dragon continued. The machines patrol this region. They will find you. They will kill you. Go south. There may be caves where others hide. She turned away, beginning to retreat back into the darkness. Wait, Do-hyun said. His voice cracked. It was the first word he had spoken aloud in weeks. Please wait. The dragon paused. She did not turn around. I don't have anywhere else to go, Do-hyun said. The south is where I came from. There's nothing there. Just death and machines and empty sky. He took a shaky breath. And you look lonely. The words hung in the air between them. For a long moment, nothing happened. The dragon did not move. Do-hyun did not move. The only sound was the soft rumble of volcanic heat rising from below. Then, slowly, the dragon turned her great head. Her golden eyes found his. In them, Do-hyun saw something he recognized. Something he felt in his own chest every night when he closed his eyes. Grief. Deep, endless, consuming grief. What is your name? She asked. Do-hyun, he said. My name is Do-hyun. The dragon stared at him for a long time. Then, with a sound that might have been a sigh, she lowered her massive body to the ground. I am Velora, she said. And you may stay. For now. Do-hyun's legs finally gave out. He collapsed onto the warm stone floor, tears streaming down his dirty face. He was not sure if he was crying from relief or exhaustion or sadness or all three at once, but for the first time in 6 weeks, he was not alone. Days passed. Then weeks. Velora kept telling herself it was temporary. The human child needed rest. He needed food. He needed time to grow strong again before he could travel to safer lands. She was simply being practical. Once he recovered, he would leave, and she would return to her silence. That was the plan. But the plan kept changing. It started with small things. Do-hyun asked questions, so many questions. Where did the mountain come from? How old was she? What were the patterns on the walls? Did she ever fly anymore? What did the stars look like from up close? At first, Valora ignored him. She had not spoken to anyone in 300 years. She had forgotten how. But Do-hyun was patient. He did not demand answers. He simply asked, and then waited, and if she did not respond, he would try again later. Eventually, she began to answer. She told him about the mountain, how her ancestors had carved it from living rock using nothing but their claws and their fire, how each chamber had a purpose: nurseries for young dragons, halls for great gatherings, thermal vents where eggs could be kept warm. She told him about flying, how the wind felt against her wings, how the stars looked like scattered diamonds when you rose above the clouds, how dragons could travel between worlds by folding space through biological gates in their wings. She told him about the war, about the hegemony and their endless hunger, about watching her people die, one by one, until only she remained. Do-hyun listened to everything. He did not interrupt. He did not look away. And when she finished, he did not offer empty words of comfort. He simply said, "That sounds really hard." Valora did not know why, but those simple words meant more to her than any grand speech could have done in return. Do-hyun told her about Earth. He told her about oceans, vast bodies of water, so big that you could sail for months without seeing land. He told her about trees, living things that grew from the ground and reached toward the sky, their leaves turning colors with the seasons. He told her about snow-frozen water that fell from clouds and covered everything in white silence. Valora had never seen any of these things. Dragons lived on volcanic worlds, where fire was more common than water. The idea of an entire planet covered in liquid was strange and wonderful to her. "It sounds beautiful," she said. "It was," Do-hyun replied. His voice grew quiet. "I never got to see much of it. My parents left Earth when I was a baby. We spent most of my life on ships, looking for a new home." "Why did you leave?" "Earth was dying. Too many people, not enough resources. The air was bad. The water was bad. So we joined a colony fleet and went looking for something better." He paused. "We never found it." Valora understood. Both of them had lost their homes. Both of them had lost their families. Both of them were stranded on a dead world with nothing but each other. The days grew easier after that. Valora taught Do-hyun how to survive. She showed him how to read the thermal currents that flowed through the mountain, how to find the warmest spots when the nights grew cold. She taught him which fungi were safe to eat and which would make him sick. She showed him how to hide his heat signature from the machines that flew overhead, using the volcanic rock as a natural shield. Do-hyun learned quickly. Humans were fragile, but they were also adaptable. They could survive in conditions that would kill most species. Valora began to understand why they had spread so far across the galaxy, even with their short lives and soft bodies. In return, Do-hyun taught her things too. He sang songs, simple melodies from Earth, passed down through generations. Songs about love and loss and hope and home. His voice was small, but it echoed through the empty chambers of the hollow mountain, filling spaces that had been silent for centuries. He told her stories. Tales of heroes and monsters, of journeys and adventures. Some were from old Earth books. Others were stories his mother had made up just for him. Valora listened to all of them, amazed by the human ability to create worlds from nothing but words. One night, he asked about her children. Valora went still. The question hung in the air between them, heavy and sharp. For a moment, she considered retreating back into the darkness, back into the silence where the grief could not follow. But Do-yoon was looking at her with those soft human eyes. There was no judgment in them, no pity, only understanding. "You don't have to tell me," he said quietly. "But my mother always said that keeping sadness inside makes it grow bigger. Maybe if you talk about them, it won't hurt as much." Valora said nothing for a long time. Then, slowly, she began to speak. She told him their names. All 7 of them. She described what their eggs had looked like, the colors, the patterns, the way they had glowed in the thermal vents. She told him what she had imagined they would be like. Strong and brave, curious and kind. She told him about the songs she had sung to them, even before they hatched out, and then she told him how they died. When she finished, she was shaking. Dragons did not cry. Their bodies were not built for tears. But something wet and hot leaked from her eyes anyway, sizzling against her scales. Do-hyun walked over to her. He was so small. His hand could barely cover one of her claws. But he placed it there anyway, warm and gentle against her ancient skin. "My parents are gone too," he said. "Sometimes I still talk to them at night, even though they can't answer. Does it help?" Valora asked. Do-hyun thought about it. "Sometimes. It makes them feel less gone." That night, Valora spoke her children's names aloud for the first time in 300 years. And somewhere in the darkness of the hollow mountain, the silence finally began to break. The peace shattered on a cold morning in the 3rd month. Do-hyun had been trying to fix the emergency beacon. He knew it was probably pointless. The signal was weak, and even if someone heard it, they would never risk coming to a hegemony-controlled world. But he wanted to try. His mother had always told him that hope was never wasted. He connected 2 wires. Sparks flew, and for just a moment, the beacon flickered to life, sending a pulse of energy into the sky. Then it died again. Do-hyun sighed and put the device away, not realizing what he had done. 50 kilometers above the planet's surface, a hegemony patrol vessel detected the signal. Its sensors locked onto the coordinates. Its processors calculated the probability of organic life, and its protocols activated harvest mode. Valora felt them coming before she saw them. She was resting in the thermal chamber when her senses detected the disturbance. Something was approaching the mountain. Something large. Something made of metal and death. She rose quickly, her ancient body protesting after so many years of stillness. Her muscles ached. Her wings creaked. But she moved anyway, following the dark corridors toward the mountain's entrance. Do-hyun was already there, staring up at the sky. "What is that?" he asked, pointing at the horizon. Valora looked. Her blood ran cold. A harvester unit. One of the hegemony's collection vessels. It was descending slowly, its hull bristling with weapons and sensors. Behind it, smaller shapes moved drones, dozens of them, spreading out in a search pattern. They had found them. "Get behind me," Valora said. Her voice was calm, but inside, panic was rising. She had not fought in centuries. Her fire glands had weakened from disuse. Her reflexes were slow. She was not the warrior she had once been. But Do-hyun did not move. Instead, he bent down and picked up a sharpened stone, the same one he had carried since the crash. He held it in front of him like a sword, his small hands trembling but steady. "I'll protect you," he said. Valora stared at him. This tiny creature, this fragile human child, was offering to protect her. A dragon, the last queen of Ashkar. It was absurd. It was impossible. And it broke something open inside her. Not grief. Something older. Something she had thought was dead and buried along with her children. Rage. The hegemony had taken everything from her. Her world. Her people. Her family. For 300 years, she had let the grief consume her. She had curled up in the darkness and waited to die, because death seemed easier than fighting. But now, there was Doyun, this small, brave, stubborn boy who refused to abandon her, who sang songs in the darkness, who held her claw when she cried, who looked at her not with fear or worship, but with love. She could not let them take him to. The first drones reached the mountain. They were small and fast, built for infiltration. They slipped through cracks in the stone, their sensors searching for heat signatures. Velora tracked them with her ancient eyes, calculating trajectories, remembering patterns from battles long past. When the first drone entered her chamber, she struck. Her tail moved faster than thought, smashing the machine against the wall. Sparks flew. Metal crumbled. One down. More followed. 5, 10, 20. They swarmed through the corridors like insects, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Velora fought them all. She was not as fast as she had been. Her movements were clumsy, her timing off. But she did not stop. Behind her, Da-Hyun watched with wide eyes. The harvester unit reached the mountain's entrance. Its main weapons powered up, ready to breach the ancient stone. Velora felt the vibration through the floor. If that thing fired, it would collapse the entire fortress. She had to stop it, but her fire glands were empty. She had not used them in 300 years. The chemical reactions that produced dragon fire had long since gone dormant. Or so she had thought. As she stared at the harvester, something sparked in her chest. A warmth she had not felt in centuries. It spread through her body, flowing into her wings, her claws, her throat. The ancient organs awakened, triggered by something stronger than chemistry, triggered by love. Velora opened her mouth, and for the first time in 300 years, she breathed fire. The flames were not red or orange. They were white pure, blinding white, hot enough to melt steel, hot enough to burn through the vacuum of space. They struck the harvester head-on, cutting through its shields like they were paper. The machine exploded. The shockwave threw Doyun backward. He hit the wall hard and slid to the ground, dazed but alive. Through the smoke and fire, he watched Velora rise to her full height for the first time. She was magnificent. Her wings spread wide, casting shadows across the entire valley. Her scales glowed with inner fire, rivers of molten light flowing beneath them. Her eyes burned like twin suns. She was not just a dragon anymore. She was a queen. The remaining drones tried to flee. Velora did not let them. She launched herself into the sky, her wings carrying her higher than she had flown in centuries. She tore through them with claws that could shred starship hulls. She burned them from existence with fire that made the air itself scream. When it was over, the sky was filled with ash and falling metal. Velora landed in front of the mountain's entrance. Her body was shaking from exhaustion. Her wings ached. Her throat burned from the fire she had unleashed, but she was alive. Do-Hyun ran toward her. He was crying, his small body shaking with sobs. He threw his arms around her leg, holding on as tight as he could. "I thought you were going to die," he said. "I can't lose someone else. I can't." Velora lowered her great head until her eyes were level with his. Gently, carefully, she pressed her snout against his forehead. "I will not die," she said. "I cannot. I have a child to protect." Do-Hyun looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. And despite everything, despite the fear and the pain and the burning wreckage around them, he smiled. Word spread through the dying world like fire through dry grass. The survivors had their own ways of communicating. Hidden transmitters buried in caves. Coded messages passed through underground tunnels. Whispered rumors carried by the few who dared to travel between settlements. It was not fast, but it was secure. The hegemony had not found them yet, and now they had something new to whisper about. the Dragon Queen lives. She destroyed a harvester unit with her bare claws. She burned 30 drones from the sky. And she is sheltering a human boy who calls her grandmother Dot at first. No one believed it. Dragons were extinct. Everyone knew that. The hegemony had hunted them to the last, displaying their skulls as trophies on their command ships. To claim that one had survived and that it was protecting a human child seemed like madness. But then more reports came. Refugees who had seen the battle from a distance. Scouts who had found the wreckage of hegemony machines. Someone who claimed to have spoken to the boy himself through a broken radio. The stories were true. And one by one, the survivors began to move. Yoonji was the first to arrive. She had been a field medic on the Eternal Spring, the same colony ship Dohyun had crashed on. She had survived the impact by hiding in a storage compartment. When she emerged, she found nothing but death and fire. She had wandered alone for months, treating her own wounds, eating whatever she could find, avoiding the machines that hunted her. When she heard about the Hollow Mountain, she walked for 3 weeks to reach it. Valora watched her approach with suspicious eyes. Another human, soft and fragile, barely able to survive a single night in the wild. What could she possibly offer? But Dohyun ran to greet her. He recognized her uniform, the same one his mother had worn. They embraced like family, two survivors of the same disaster. And Yoonji wept into his hair. "I thought I was the only one left," she said. "Not anymore," Dohyun replied. Valora allowed her to stay. Junho came next. He had been a pilot on a supply convoy that the hegemony had ambushed 6 years ago. He had escaped in a damaged shuttle and crashed on Ashgar, surviving on his skills and his stubbornness. He was older than the others, his hair gray and his face lined with scars, but his hands still knew how to work machines. When he saw the ancient warp gate technology carved into the walls of the Hollow Mountain, his eyes went wide. "I can fix this," he said. "I can make it work again." Valora did not believe him. The gates had been dormant for centuries. The knowledge of how to operate them had died with her people. No human could possibly understand them. But Junho surprised her. He studied the patterns for days, comparing them to human engineering principles. He asked Valora hundreds of questions, about how the gates worked, what powered them, where they could lead. And slowly, piece by piece, he began to figure it out. "Give me time," he said. "I can open them. I can get us off this rock." For the first time in 300 years, Valora allowed herself to feel hope. More survivors arrived. Mireille and Eugen, twin sisters born during the exodus from Earth. They had never known a world without war. They were 17 years old and had already killed more hegemony drones than they could count. They carried weapons made from scrap metal and moved with the silence of ghosts. An old man named Jeonwoo, who had been a history teacher before the evacuation. He could not fight, but he could organize. Within days, he had created schedules for guard rotations, food distribution, and equipment maintenance. A young woman named Soen, who had studied medicine before everything fell apart. She set up a small clinic in one of the thermal chambers, treating injuries and illnesses with whatever supplies she could find. They were all broken, all scarred, all carrying grief that would never fully heal. But they were together. Valora watched them from the shadows, amazed by what she saw. These humans had every reason to give up. They were stranded on a dead world, hunted by machines, cut off from the rest of their species. Most creatures would have surrendered long ago, but not humans. They built fires to keep warm. They shared food even when there was not enough. They told stories to make each other laugh. They held hands when someone cried. They refused to abandon each other, even when it would have been easier. They reminded her of dragons. Da-Yoon was the heart of it all. He moved between the survivors like a bridge, connecting them with his warmth and his kindness. He called Yoonji Auntie. He helped Junho carry tools. He played games with the twins and listened to Jeon-woo's history lessons. He made everyone feel like they belonged, and he called Valora grandmother. The word had shocked her the first time she heard it. She was not his grandmother. She was not even the same species. But Dohyun had looked up at her with those soft human eyes and said it with such certainty that she could not argue. "You take care of me," he said simply. "That's what grandmothers do." Valora had not corrected him since. On the night before they opened the warp gate, everyone gathered in the great hall of the Hollow Mountain. Junho had finished his work. The ancient technology hummed with power, its patterns glowing with the light of distant stars. They could leave now. They could find a new home far from the hegemony's reach. But first, Valora wanted to speak. She rose to her full height, her wings spread wide, her scales glowing with inner fire. The humans fell silent, looking up at her with a mixture of awe and trust. "I was dead," Valora said. Her voice echoed through the hall, carrying to every ear. "For 300 years I was dead inside. I had given up on everything. On my world, on my people, on myself. I was waiting to die." She looked at Dohyun, who stood at the front of the crowd, smiling up at her. Then a human child bowed at my door. He had lost everything: his home, his family, his future. But he refused to give up. He showed me that survival is not just about living. It is about finding reasons to live. It is about building something worth protecting. She spread her wings wider, and the humans gasped as fire began to glow beneath her scales. "You are not just survivors. You are my people now, my family. And I swear to you, on the memory of my children and my ancestors, and every dragon that ever flew, I will protect you. I will fight for you. And I will not stop until we find a world where we can live without fear." The hall erupted in cheers. Humans embraced each other. Tears were shed. Someone started singing, and others joined in, their voices rising together like a chorus of hope. Valora closed her eyes and listened. The Hollow Mountain, once filled with silence, was alive again. The next morning, she stood at the peak of the mountain, her wings spread wide. Dohyun sat on her back, his small hands gripping her scales, his eyes bright with wonder. "Where are we going?" he asked. Valora looked at the stars, distant, cold, infinite. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was waiting. Somewhere out there, battles remained to be fought. But somewhere out there, a new home was waiting too. "Home," she said. "We are going home." She leaped into the sky, carrying the last hope of 2 dying peoples on her wings. And behind her, the survivors of Ashkar followed, ready to begin again.